So the biggest, if you're getting out of prison, I would say one of the most important thing is surround yourself with, people that dream big and support your vision. And it's basically having your own support system, and you got to have a strong one. I've seen strong guys get out of prison that didn't have the support system, and it didn't end up good for them.
The hope is that the reentry program is able to help individuals to look at themselves beyond what they ever thought possible, and then know that we're here to support them in that. So whatever somebody wants to do, without judgment, whatever somebody did in the past isn't going to determine how I treat them and how we go forward for the future.
And I told her, does that mean I got a job? And she said yes.
Hello, my name is Patrick Willis, and I am a career advisor at Clark College.
Hi, I'm Niira Krupnick, and I am a Career Connections Manager at Clark College. We're here today to talk to you about some of your options after you complete your program. We know that it can be a little nerve-wracking to be facing life on the outside and not knowing if there are going to be career options available and how that will impact you and your family. And we're hoping that we'll be able to provide some insight that will help.
Right, and one of our goals for this video is for you to not only hear about resources, but hear actual stories of people who have experienced some similar things in their lives and how they've navigated through those challenges and opportunities. And so we believe that there will be something valuable for you to take away from the collection of material that we've put together today. I hope you enjoy.
My name is Isaac DeLaRosa. I was raised in San Jacinto, California, which is a town in Riverside County. My parents were pastors of a church, and my dad was a former gang member turned Christian pastor. This plays a role in my life as I later learned how you have to get out of certain mindsets. So growing up, I was a pastor's kid, and I was very sheltered up until a certain point in my life. Then I started making a lot of bad choices. I started hanging out with gang members. I started doing what gang members do. I ended up joining a gang, and at the age of 17, I went to prison for a murder that I committed in the name of my gang. So I ended up spending from 1995 up until 2020 when I was released in prison, where I went from thinking I was going to die in prison and acting like I was going to die in prison. I spent 62% of my time in the SHU and ADSEG isolation. And in 2012, I made a conscious decision to try to get into a better mind frame without having to do anything that would negatively impact my character, that would devalue my integrity, or that would make me vulnerable to things that go on in prison. So as I went on in prison, after that conscious decision to turn my life around, I started trying to do my best to educate myself. I got involved in as many prison programs, self-help as I could. They started offering us college courses. I have 33 units with Bakersfield College, and that's where a lot of my business classes came into practice.
So when I was a kid, I always loved animals. I wanted to be a veterinarian, but I made some wrong turns in my life, and I ended up in prison for 12 years. My first 9 years were pretty hard. I was still involved with violence, drugs, and the politics of prison. In my 12th year, I was sitting in my cell, and some feeling came over me that I needed a dog in my life. I reached out to my mom, and she said, yeah, you can have a dog. I was gonna buy a dog off Craigslist, and luckily one of my best friend's girlfriend said, no, you better rescue a dog. When I was released from prison, I found Shadow's story on Facebook. It was about a dog that was dropped in the desert with 2 other dogs in a crate with bullet casings all around it. That story, for some reason, struck my heart, and I knew that she was the dog that I needed to rescue. When I met Shadow at the meet and greet, I was told that she didn't like men. We connected instantly. We took her home that day, and that's where it all started. In the first 3 weeks that I adopted Shadow, we were bonding, doing everything together. Then everything changed at the 3-week mark. We took her to the vet. The vet requested that she needed x-rays. When they did the x-rays, they found a bullet in her lungs about 1 centimeter away from her heart and said that she needed immediate surgery. The next few days of my life were some of the hardest days that I've ever been through. I just met my best friend, and I didn't know if she was gonna survive. Shadow recovered, and our bond grew stronger than ever. At that point in my life, and that situation that I went through, I decided that I wanted to live my life for dogs. Because of the impact that she had on me, I knew if that dog could change my life, a dog could change anybody's life. I started to volunteer at local rescues, which led me to working at a animal sanctuary, which I took care of 150 dogs daily. I eventually ended up back in California, where it all started from. My goal was to start my own one day, and from all the help that I received from these other organizations, I thought the time was right. In April of 2018, we decided to launch SOS Dog Rescue, Strength of Shadow, the dog that changed everything for me. Shadow was the part of my path that I needed. If she wasn't here, I don't know where I would be right now. She gave me strength when I was weak. She gave me comfort when I was sad. She was everything I needed to help get me where I am today. All I want to do is rescue now. I learned that if you rescue a dog, you can change a human's life at the same time. Since Shadow was found in Kern County, we decided to make our mission in Kern County, which we will save dogs, adopt them out, and help people at the same time.
If I could raise $50 right now, I'm gonna save a dog. And if you guys look at it, that's not very high to be a part of saving a dog's life.
There is a lot of broken people in our community, and I want to give them the same opportunity that I had. We want to rescue dogs like Shadow that can save people like me.
So as I'm taking college classes, I'm also taking a lot of self-help. I was in denial about being, a drug user, an alcoholic, even my gang involvement. So I had to take NA classes, AA classes, and I took those and I put them to use for my gang mentality. Because I had mentioned earlier, I was raised by a stern Mexican father that was a pastor, but in his youth, he was a gang member. So a lot of the habits that he raised us with, he raised us to be gang members without him realizing. He did turn his life to Christ and he did a lot of good things for a lot of good people, but he also did a lot of negative things just by the way he thought. So if it wasn't for the church, he kind of ran the church like a gang to benefit the church, to promote the church, and to be the best at the church. So a lot of that, what I know now of my gang involvement, that's how I was in my organization. So I was able to identify these things by taking a lot of classes. I took a class called Gogi, which is going out by going in, which is a lot of self-reflecting. It gives you tools for anger. It gives you tools for positive thinking. It gives you tools for positive words, because your words have power. So this helped me put my thoughts in a better position. It helped me put myself in a positive thinking. So in 2014, I received a slip that because I was a youth offender and I was a youth at the time of my crime, I was qualifying for some new laws that changed in California that would allow me to go to a board hearing as a juvenile and not as an adult. So when I got this slip, I changed everything of what I was doing. I let my people know that I was gonna put myself in a place to parole. And I have a strong family support that they supported me all the way through. So when I started changing, it took baby steps, little things at a time. Just like it took me years to become a gang member, get into prison, and then be in the prison lifestyle. It also took me that many years to get myself out of that prison mentality, out of the gang mentality, and now to be a successful business owner. So during that time, I took a lot of classes. I took business classes, I took logic classes, I took a lot of thinking classes, history, and all these classes put me in a better position to think about my future, how I was gonna run a company, and what type of company I wanted to run. So now I fast forward to 2017, because I was always in the shoe and ADSEG and isolation. I had too many points to be on a lower level. So because a lot of these laws changed, they affected me by giving me a behavioral override. In California, if you give them a certain amount of time clean, they allow you to go to a lower level. So I was able to go to a lower level without having the points to be on that lower level. So I was allowed to go program and learn. I learned trades, a small engine technician. I have certifications for small engine repair. But when I got to a prison in North Kern, Delano State Prison, I was in and involved myself with the Positive Change Dawg program. So as I got into the Dawg program, I learned as much as I could until I became a student and then the teacher of the program. So teaching the program, it helped me view myself that that's what I wanted to do. This is how I was gonna change my life. This is how I was gonna change my situation when I did get out. And that's what I did. So the more classes I took with the dogs, the more I learned hands-on with the dogs, the more I was able to see myself as a successful person on the street. So at that point, I was in the Dawg program from September of 2018 until I paroled in May 1st of 2020. I have not been out for 2 years yet, and I have a successful business. Part of my business, I still live in the same town I grew up in. I still see a lot of the same people, but a lot of those people now recognize I'm not living that lifestyle. I didn't have to lower my standards. I just educated myself to put myself in a better place in my community. Now that I'm out here, I'm rebuilding my community. I give back to my family. I help my sisters and their kids, my brothers and their kids go to school. I pick them up from school. I drop them off. There's a lot of things that I do without even being asked, just because I want to spend time with my family because of all the time I missed. You know, I'm still here. I still live in the same house, and I run my business out of my house. So now that I'm here, I'm in a position where I'm starting to look for a piece of property so I could go and get out of my mom's house and continue my business and go and expand my business to a better area.
Hi, Robbie. We should probably introduce and say we have Robbie on the line. Were you employed at another job before you started your business?
Yeah, actually, I knew the career I wanted to take. I volunteered at another dog rescue, and then I worked at a animal sanctuary.
Okay.
Where I could gain experience to, further my career.
Okay, so when you moved on from the sanctuary, that's when you started your own business?
So I adopted a dog when I first got out of prison, and I didn't realize, I didn't even understand where I was going or my plans. Things just started falling into place, after I adopted the dog. I started volunteering, and then I moved to Oklahoma and got a job at a sanctuary, and then I moved back to California and worked for another rescue, and then I learned all the stuff I did like about what they did, and I took pieces from everywhere, and I created the way that I would have liked to do it.
Nice. How did you decide to start the nonprofit? Or how did you decide to go that route with the nonprofit?
I mean, I guess that just to be reputable and official, to be a dog rescue, you have to have a nonprofit status. It's a way that you can collect donations and have fundraisers and stuff like that to support your mission.
That makes sense. Did you do that on your own? Were you able to get help?
So the biggest, if you're getting out of prison, I would say one of the most important thing is surround yourself with, people that dream big and support your vision. And it's basically having your own support system, and you got to have a strong one. I've seen strong guys get out of prison that didn't have the support system, and it didn't end up good for them. So I would say you just have to have good people around you, and when you have good people around you, usually good things happen to you.
Awesome. So I think that starting a nonprofit is probably difficult for anybody. Did you find information on how to do it on your own, or are some of those good people that you set up around you able to help you with it?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not the smartest guy when it comes to computers and filling out paperwork. I was blessed to have people that believed in me around me that were able to help me get to all the points of having my nonprofit. I knew that's what I wanted to be, so I could have my dream. I knew I had to have the nonprofit status, and people around me were able to help me do that.
Excellent. I think Patrick had a question for you.
Hey, Robbie, it's Patrick. You're talking about developing a group of supporters and the influence that has for reentry. I'm wondering if you can talk about how you developed that group, that support team.
Well, I guess it's going to be a little different um, for certain individuals when they get out. The dog side of it is that a lot of people love dogs, and the amazing thing about dogs is it has people from every background, from millionaires down to people that are struggling every day. And there's a lot of people that want to help dogs, and it was easier to do that and say that somebody was taking like college courses or something. That would be more, I don't know, it'd be different, I guess, but it is possible, no matter what your dream is, there is people that are interested, and there's a lot of people in society. When you first get out, you think everybody's against you, but there's a lot of people that as long as you are honest and true with yourself, there will be a lot of people that will support you when you get out. Some people take a little time to trust you, but after time, they really want to see a good story. They want to be a part of it. They want to be a part of the life changing. They like to see somebody that struggled and is now making the world a better place. And for me, that really worked. Now I don't have the things when I was selling narcotics. I don't have jewelry and lots of money and vacations and stuff like that no more, but I get to sleep at night, and I don't have to worry about if someone's going to try to get me or if the cops are going to kick at my door. So it's definitely a good peace of mind when you're making the world a better place. And it's awesome. A lot of us that were incarcerated, we just took from the world every day. And now when you are part of a charity or even working anywhere, you can have the benefit of making the world a better place.
You're doing a good job doing that. And I can definitely vouch for dog rescuers as being a really open and kind group. And it's nice because part of this project is that we're able to provide possibly some of those resources that are in this area to help people if they have some similar goals. What advice would you give individuals that are going into business after incarceration?
If I was going to give advice to somebody that is just getting out of prison or jail, I would tell them, probably stay away from the area that you got incarcerated with. Stay away from old friends. You're not going to be the same person as you were. They're not going to know you no more. They're not going to appreciate who you're becoming. And make sure you're strong until you get around those people, and make sure you're strong enough to say no. There's a lot of temptation that you can get wrapped into when you first get out, and it can suck you right back into the system. And that's why it's a revolving door. A lot of people don't build a foundation. They think that they're strong and they go right back to where they came from, and usually that doesn't work out for them.
Thank you so much for giving us some of your insight and for all of the amazing work that you've been doing. And
I wish I could touch on it more, but I know you guys are getting guys for to be lawyers and accountants and awesome stuff that they could be doing, and obviously that's still an area that can bless the world. But I guess when you do charity work, I'm just going to be honest, a lot of doors just got open for me, just by being honest and keeping it real. And if I said something, I did it, Yeah. And I'm not perfect, and I'm 7 years or 8 years now out, and it's definitely a learning process to this day. When you're incarcerated, you're taught to react, and out here reacting is not going to get you far. You got to sit back and think, and every decision doesn't have to be made in a second.
Sure. And I think that probably a lot of the students that are that hear you giving this insight, they're taking business courses, but maybe not necessarily going into some of those other businesses. They're looking for options, and I imagine a lot of them are going to want to be learning ways to be able to contribute to their society and also use some of the skills that they've learned in their business classes to do that. So I think that you've really modeled that well and given a lot of really good information that you have why, like working with the dogs is your why. So I think that it's good for people to find what drives them and whatever that may be.
Right, and I was just going to touch base on that. Like, even if it's not dogs, it could be NA, AA, religion, whatever makes you a better person, that's where you need to be at. Like, if you need to, whatever you're struggling, go to places that you can get self-help, like, don't just stay stagnant and expect things. You got to go out there and get it. Like, you got to, sit down and think of your goals, write them down if you have to, and just dig and try to make the world a better place every day. Like, even if it's something small, do something good for somebody or something, and it just falls into place. And it's gonna feel rough when you're first out. It's gonna feel rough. Like, you're gonna struggle, but I think that's where the magic happens. If you have the determination to fight through all the battles, mental battles that you're going to go through, it's going to make a new man in you, and you're going to be able to stand on your own and do a lot of great things for the world.
Do you find that even at this point, after all these years, that you sometimes face challenges, and if so, how do you get through them?
Yeah, well, actually, yeah, like when especially in the path I decided to take is in the charity, there's always somebody that has something to say about you, and it's hard, that people questioning you are talking to you in a disrespectful manner because you're in the public, and having to let that stuff go. Because in prison, we're trained to react and to make this situation, basically, when somebody disrespects you, you have to handle it in there. And out here, you have to smile and nod a lot. Because I think in our first conversation, like, those guys in there, like, you have something in common with them at the moment because you're both away from your family, and, you guys created a bond. You guys are going through the struggle together. But when it's over, like, if you earned a name in there and you thought you became a yard captain or somebody, a shot caller, it doesn't matter out here. Your family doesn't care. Nobody does. It's just that world, and you're coming to a different world, and you got to work on it on a whole different status, because your boss is not going to care that you had weight in prison.
Yeah, that's really good insight, and I'm sure it's really helpful. And I'm really looking at the time and realizing that you've got to go, but thank you. You give really, really great insight and information, and we're really grateful that you've been able to help us.
Yeah, for sure. If you need me for anything, let me know. All right? Thank you for doing it this way and, like, having to change your schedule away. I've been on the road doing adoptions and driving like 7-8 hours in the last couple of days.
Can we give
so
people
it's been
sources so they can see your videos when they're having access to the internet again?
Huh?
You okay if we give some of these students?
Yeah. Like, you can have me on recording. It is perfectly okay to let the guys have access to my videos.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Robbie.
All right.
Really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, Robbie.
All
right.
No problem. If you guys need anything, let me know. You guys have a good day.
You too. Bye.
So technology has changed a lot and continues to change almost daily. So things might look a lot different than they did 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe even 6 months ago. So when the world is rapidly changing on the outside, how do we get access to those new pieces of technology, and how do we use them to further our careers? The other side of this is there are things that are necessary parts of release that might seem tedious, might seem like something that you're not interested in, but could end up being really valuable assets and give you really valuable time to build a network, to gain skills, and to learn all those different areas of technology.
Right. And we hope that you see yourself right now as a student, as a learner. And so you've set the tone for your life in that respect. And we believe that you should continue to learn when you are released, and really view your life as a continuous learner, as someone who can continue to build on the skills that you're developing now and find new opportunities to grow in areas of your interest. And we believe these upcoming clips will give some really great testimonial and example of how others have done that.
Now that I'm back out in the community, there's a lot of resources that were available to me, and some of the resources I had to go out there and find myself. A lot of these resources that were available to me was because I was a life inmate. I was asked to do a sober living program for the first 6 months of my release. It was not really a request, it was more of a mandatory thing, but the way they form it is the form of a request. So it's kind of funny. But to me, I took advantage of that because I wasn't asked to pay bills here. I wasn't asked to pay any light food. I was given a certain amount of money for food, and I took advantage of that by going and doing what I wanted to do. So what I did, I found myself in Palm Springs, California, and I rode my bike 12 miles to a dog shelter that I had found near my area. So because when I first was released, I didn't have my driver's license, I didn't have no ID. It took me 4 months to get all my paperwork together. So I was on my bicycle. I was taking Ubers, I was taking rides. People would pick me up and drop me off. But I worked at a dog shelter because one of the guys that had mentored me, and he still helps me, Mr. Robert Villaneda, he told me the most experience I'm gonna get is by getting my hands on more dogs. So the way I did it was I went down to a local shelter. I spoke with the owner, and she told me I didn't have no references. She was kind of making it difficult for me to be hired. But I asked her if I could wow you with 1 hour with your worst dog, would you give me a job? So I gave her a few reference numbers. She called them, and in that time, she gave me about an hour before she came back. And when she came back, I had the dog that she had there for 1.5 years. Nobody could really mess with it. I had him laying down on the floor. So when she opens the door, she was like, wow. And I told her, does that mean I got a job? And she said, yes. So from that time forward, I was biking every day to and from work, 12 miles in the heat, because I was released in the beginning of summer. I wore a backpack full of water just to get to work and to ride on the way home. So until I was able to get a vehicle, it made it a little bit easier. But the resources that they give me by staying in that halfway house, I saw it as a blessing because I didn't have to pay bills. So the way I saw it was, I got 6 months to do what I want to do and prove to myself I could get my business going. And that way I could do what I love and be happy with the tools I was given and put that in a successful way to not only benefit myself, but to benefit my family.
Hello, we're here with Angelica. I'm going to have you fully introduce yourself and tell us about what you do.
Hi, my name is Angelica Pravettoni, and I am the advisor for reentry students at Clark College. We created a program to specifically support the individual needs that each reentry student has in a holistic manner. And that means that we address each barrier or challenge that you might have in helping you to not only obtain your degree, but also find employment. I feel.
Can I ask one more question on that area? Do you also work with people that might have already completed a school program and are?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, so especially with what's going on right now with the pandemic and the changes that we've seen in the community, we've had students that have decided that they were going to do a new pathway. So a lot of them have entered into entrepreneurship, and others have changed their focus to computer technology so that they're able to change with the meeting the demands that the community employment opportunities have for them.
Thank you.
Angelica, this is Patrick, and we'd love to hear you talk a bit about your department and how individuals might come into contact with you and the kinds of supports that are available through the college that are pertaining to reentry.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great question. So Workforce Education Services is the department where the reentry program is housed. And so we have several different funding opportunities through Workforce Education Services. All students complete a universal application, and they will identify different programs for which they might have eligibility. And so the other things that we ask them questions about are housing, if they need housing support, if they need childcare, do they need resources for employment. And once we identify any kind of challenges or barriers that they have and link them up with different funding opportunities, we can co-enroll them into different programs. And what's unique about that is that our office offers advising. We also help with financial aid. We support students that need tuition and books and transportation, childcare. So we try to meet the students where they're at and make sure that they have all the resources that they need to be fully successful in completing their degree.
So it sounds like you're working with students who are enrolled at the college, and what does it look like for students who might have completed a program such as this AAS program at Larch, who might be looking for support from Clark?
Sure. So if they decide they want to continue on and get either the additional classes that they need to get an AA transfer degree and continue on their education at a university, that's an opportunity. If they want to be able to gain new skills or certificates to become more employable, that is an opportunity. We also have some bachelor's degree programs as well. So Clark has a wide array of classes and certificates available, and we will look at the transcripts that the students provide, and we will use those to determine what the best option is for them.
Thank you. Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting. Okay, so what can they expect from their visit or discussion with your department?
So I like to build relationships with the students that I work with. I think it's really important for us to begin with a relationship so that we can help them to be successful. I want students to be able to feel that they can come to me when they have a problem and when they have successes, right? So we become a partner in learning. A visit would be, we'll review the application, and then we will create an education plan. We'll declare their major, we'll make sure their financial aid is situated, get them registered in classes, provide funding for tuition and books if needed, and then give them the resources that they need to, if they need to get a laptop that they're loaning, the school loans laptops, or if they need other resources, to make sure that they have access to those, to make the transition into starting classes very seamless, and also as minimal stress as possible.
So a big question from the students who are at Larch has to do with seeking employment related to their training after release. And so it'd be great if you can talk about some of the individuals that you've worked with and the successes that you've seen from them career-wise, and any changes over time given maybe different labor market conditions or situations with the individuals?
Yeah, so when a lot of students had bad experiences in the K through 12 system, and so they don't feel education has necessarily had that partnership with them. And so the work that we've done in working with the students is we've made the college ready for students that are reentry. So we've worked with the instructors so that they understand some of the challenges and barriers that reentry students have, as well as being able to work with financial aid to do appeals if they need, right? And we are trying to make the college ready for the students. And so part of that is making sure that we have degree programs that will support them, and also certificates. Some of the careers that students have gone into, a lot of students like to do welding classes. They get their welding degrees and then they work with the unions. Classes that are business oriented are very closely aligned with the supervisory management degree. So if somebody wanted to do the bachelor's degree program at Clark, that's an easy transition for them to be able to do that. Entrepreneurship is huge, and I have a lot of students that have picked very unique career paths. So, I have students that are doing cuisine management because they want to be able to start a food truck, and I have other students that are taking computer classes because they want to be able to do cryptocurrency, and other students that are, have started like mobile jiu-jitsu companies to be able to provide services. And so each individual plan that we create is very specific for the individual needs of the student, and helping them to gain employment has been challenging in some cases, but there's usually an appeal process associated with the background check. So, that's something I can guide students through the process with, and have worked very successfully in helping students to gain employment at the college and also in the community.
Thank you so much for that. And we have some other individuals we've talked to that have taken some really unique approaches to entrepreneurship too. So it's nice to know that's happening in all different areas. So what would you say, I mean, you just spoke about the background checks, but what other things would you say have been the biggest barriers?
I think technology is a barrier that students face frequently. So depending on how long somebody's been incarcerated, but Clark has provided some resources through transitional studies that are free to students, where they can learn the basics of being able to, save files to the system, what it looks like to turn the computer on and off, how to access documents and those kind of things. And then we also have tutorials available to students as well. Financial barriers are another issue that students face. And so, there's opportunities to get work study employment, which is offered through financial aid, or to gain employment outside. And I can work with students to be able to get letters of recommendations and referrals if they need those. Housing is also another issue. So depending on how somebody's background check comes back when they run their background check, and also how long it's been since the last time they had a crime on the background check, they might not be able to get employment, or they might not be able to get housing in certain areas. And so when they get the denial letters, or if they get requests for additional information, I can work with the students to write appeals and provide supporting documentation so that they're able to find housing that's sustainable. We have partnerships with several different transitional housing organizations that provide clean, safe housing for students. And so, there's usually a cost associated with the housing, but we can even find support for housing assistance if necessary. And so it's really just in knowing what the students need, and then we can overcome those barriers together. And every term might look different, right? Somebody might have problems with housing one term, and then the next term they're facing employment barriers, and then the next term they need childcare. So those are the things that we address each term to make sure that they can continue their education without that stress.
Sounds great. And covered a lot of different kinds of challenges that the students might experience. And that all feeds into the questions they're asking about how to be successful with employment. Speaking of your experience with students specifically coming from Larch and their educational program, I mean, we're focused on the AAS supervisory management program. But can you talk a little bit about some of the individuals you've worked with and how they have pursued and used their education from Larch to pursue employment goals?
Absolutely. I think a big part of the employment opportunities come with the work that they're doing when they're going to school. So a lot of students have found success in being able to volunteer when they're going to school, right? And having the volunteer opportunity or getting the work study job or part-time employment, because that shows that they're moving in the path that they're saying. So if something gets flagged on a background check, then that isn't necessarily an issue because they can see that there's been change in progress made. And so some students that I have a student, he started a cabinet business. And so he was doing construction and he completed his, he switched his degree. He switched to accounting, completed the accounting degree, and then he started a business doing cabinets. And so he partnered with different people that he knew to do that. I have other students that have gone into like photography and that are working with like the ASPCA and other organizations to be able to, you know, highlight and develop their companies. And so a lot of the students that I work with have that entrepreneurial spirit, and they really have the skills that they need. It's just in learning the middle class norms, right? Being able to navigate the different systems. And those are the things that they learn when they're going to Clark. And those are the things that I help them to learn while they're going to Clark.
That's great to hear. Have you noticed changes in the job market that have impacted some of these individuals that have served time?
Yes, I can speak to one student specifically. So I have a student, he was doing the welding program, and when the pandemic started, he had to gain employment right away to be able to pay his rent because he had roommates moving around and things like that. And so he went to the union and he got a job, but he was the last person hired on. So first person that was laid off. This happened to him at 5 different companies. And so during the time we kept in contact, we were still talking. He wasn't taking classes at the time. But, you know, the conversation was, hey, I've got these skills. I love doing martial arts. And, you know, I think that I'm going to start doing this. And he created a program for kids where kids were at home, right? And so he was charging, you know, $20 a student to be able to go to people's houses and teach the kids martial arts. And then we had him come back to Clark, and then he did his first aid CPR certification. So that gave him credentials, right, that backed up his business. And then he continued to take classes at Clark. So he took some martial arts classes. So he had additional skills to teach. And then he started taking communications classes and then going into a business degree. So as the job market shifted, so did his focus on how he was going to continue to make money. And Clark was able to support him in doing that by offering programs and also support education where he needed those.
We know you have a lot of resources that you recommend, not only from the college, but also in the community. And so it'd be great to hear more about some of the recommended resources for this particular population of students coming out of Larch.
Sure. So we have some funding that we got through, we have some funding for reentry students specifically. And so we can help with tuition and book support. We can help with buying clothing, tools. If anybody needs help with like food, those kind of items, we can provide that. And that was donated through both outside donors and also faculty and staff. Some other resources that we utilize are, you know, partnerships with, you know, Council for the Homeless and the Vancouver Housing Authority, the different apartment complexes that I've worked with to help house other students, transitional housing organizations to be able to make sure that, you know, if they don't have the money to pay for the rent, then there's also an opportunity for them not to become homeless. We offer a gym pass to students that are considered homeless or in transitional housing for each term so that they have access to using the showers and towels, and they can also use the facilities at the gym. We also provide, you know, referrals to, like we work with a volunteer lawyer program. And so if I have students that are struggling, I can contact the executive director and ask questions or refer them over for services that they need. We also work with the YWCA for females, so we can support women that are in situations where they might have housing insecurity or might be in situations that are not conducive to their health. We have counseling and health services available through Clark College free for students. They can either do in-person visits, Zoom visits, or group meetings. So there's a lot of resources that are available. We work with WorkSource, and we have a specific program through WorkSource with BFET. So anybody who's in BFET can get vouchers if needed to be able to, go to interviews or to find employment. So there's a lot of resources that are available, and those are identified when they complete the application and through the conversations that we have during the term.
This is such a great program. So what suggestions would you give some of this? Was a question that's come up with some of the students that are wondering how they're going to be able to support their families. So what suggestions would you give these individuals that have that concern?
So that depends on what their eligibility is for financial aid. So, I tell students not to think of financial aid as a source of income, to think of that as the opportunity for education. And so I try to help students to find actual employment. Employment is huge in being able to be sustainable, and that depends on everybody's situation is different. So, depending on the price of the rent, depending on the family structure, do they have children, are they eligible for additional support, is where we are able to kind of make the plan to what's best for them. But, usually it's, start with part-time employment. The first term when they're taking classes, I advise them into, 6 to 8 credits, not taking a full-time schedule, so they have time to transition and to learn the college systems, to learn how to communicate with the instructors, and also to be able to manage their life obligations, right? Any kind of treatment that they might have, anything that they have with commitments with the DSC, employment, family, rebuilding relationships. So, my goal is to make sure that somebody has a really good experience that first term, because that determines like how they feel about going forward. The hope is that the reentry program is able to help individuals to look at themselves beyond what they ever thought possible, and then know that we're here to support them in that. So whatever somebody wants to do, without judgment, I don't, whatever somebody did in the past isn't going to determine how I treat them and how we go forward for the future. And so, I feel that we've made some really good connections with the students and been able to help them to, gain employment and to find those resources. There are untraditional resources. Some students receive scholarships for funding. Some students have part-time employment. Some students live with families so they don't have to pay the rent, and they're able to use their financial aid funding to be able to offset costs. So we can create plans to do that. And we also have resources available through the financial wellness program.
Angelica, this isn't a question on our paper, but it kind of pertains to how we want to wrap this up. On a personal level, in your experience working with this population, it's unique and so important. And I just wonder if, one, as you're thinking of what else you might share with these students, what comes to mind, but also, is there any personal story of a student that comes to mind that kind of serves as a inspiration for you when you think about the work that you do, that might be motivating for this group of students as they think about their future?
I think that I can use one particular example, but I feel that a lot of the students can connect with this. So I had a student that was pursuing his GED, and his family had never benefited from education, and neither had he. He had really bad experiences, and his family was very negative and telling him that, going to school was stupid, and they were insulting him. And he came into the office one day and he was crying and he was ready to give up. And so we had the conversation, and I asked him, I said, what do you want? What do you want for your life? And he said, well, he wanted to get his degree, and he was thinking that maybe, if he was able to get his diploma, that he could get a degree. And so, through the conversation, and asking him if he was okay with going against what other people were saying to achieve what he really wanted to do. And he decided he did. And I said, I'll be here to support you through that. So if you're having a bad day, you come see me. If you feel like you want to cry, I'm here. We'll work through this together. And so he decided he was going to stay in classes. And the interesting thing is that as he got the diploma and he completed that, he came to me and he said, I would have walked away if you weren't here. And so I said, it wasn't me, it was you. I mean, you did the work, and I was there to listen, and the person to say, you could do this, and the social circle that he needed, we began that. And so he started getting connected with other organizations on campus, and he started volunteering his time, and he started feeling like he really belongs. And so somebody who went from not having a GED and has now graduated from Washington State University and has a degree and changed his life, now has the respect of his family, and also has the respect of knowing that he was able to accomplish what he wanted to. Every term, something I tell students is every term is a success, right? So, most people would say, oh, getting the degree is a success. No, every time you're able to complete that term, whether or not you pass the classes, that is the success, because you keep moving forward, not to give up. And so I have, students that come back and, they have life circumstances that happen and they'll stop taking classes, but they'll still contact me because they're like, hey, I need these kind of resources. So we stay in connection, and that's the kind of relationships the reentry program builds. Okay, it becomes the first bit of, social capital. It helps to break down biases that people have about themselves, thinking that they can't accomplish things, and helps them to build the confidence that they need to be able to move forward in the world. The reentry program has had up before the pandemic, 95% retention rate. And we had students, getting their degrees every term. And so that speaks to not only how effective the program is, but the integrity of the students.
That's awesome. I just want to say you've shared a lot with us today that I think will be both inspirational and very practical. And I think both are highly important. So appreciate your time.
And so comforting for, for people that are having those doubts and are not sure what comes next. You're such a great resource for them. And I love that's available for students that are on a different path. It's great.
Yeah. I feel that's, I love my job. I love my job. I feel every day I'm thankful that I have the opportunity to help people.
The way I have learned how to use technology, for me, it was a little bit difficult and a little bit simple, because I was incarcerated in the town. There was no phones. Everything was like a beeper. Everything was the big brick. That was the closest we got to a smartphone. But as I mentioned, in prison, I was not always on the right path. So I know I had some kind of small way to understand how the phones worked. So getting out here, having it 24/7, it was like a life-changing experience, because everything is so easy now. It's so simple. You can ask it and tell it to do things for you. Like, that's how I found the place I ended up working at in Palm Springs, which is the Barkingham Hotel for Pets. I asked Siri to find me dog hotels, shelters nearest to me, and it gave me a radius of 15 miles. So with that, I've also been able to make videos for Instagram. I've been making videos for Facebook. And the more I use these tools and technologies, the better my business comes, because I do get a lot of revenue off of my videos. I share a lot of information about the dogs, how to handle the dogs, and how to treat your dog. And as you can see, I have built myself a shelter behind me for the dogs. I have kennels, and I have dogs. The dogs have been so good to me, but at the same time, I had to run a business, so I had to educate myself with the help of the people in there. Business skills that I've learned, a lot of it is, I was always good at talking to people, knowing when people were lying to me. And a lot of these things in prison, you learn how to be honest. So that now I apply it to my business. I try to be as honest and transparent with the people that bring me their dogs, because people love their dogs. I love dogs. And to some people, this is like their child. And when they trust me with their dog, I want to be as transparent as possible. And for me, that takes integrity, the good and the bad. It helps me be a better business person. It helps me be a better businessman. And it helps me show my family how to run a legitimate business. The way I stay focused is when I wake up every morning, I thank God, the God of my understanding, for giving me that day. And I thank him for the blessing of allowing me to wake up and allowing me to work and allowing me to be free, and not only am I physically free, but I'm mentally free and I'm spiritually free. So I'm able to do all the things that I love. I'm able to share my knowledge of the dogs, put it to practical use, and that helps me build a better relationship with my relatives, with the people around me, and in my own relationships in life. What I would tell people that have been recently released is take advantage, especially guys that have been in long-term incarceration, take advantage of the opportunities that are given to you. If they place you in a halfway home, don't think of it as a negative. Think of it as you got anywhere from 6 months to a year to get on your feet, to save as much money as you can, and to chase your dream and put yourself in a position to be successful, not only in career, but in yourself and going into the future. That's what I did when I was released. I was able to look at myself, know what I want, and turn my establishment from nothing. The place I'm at right now, it had 5 trees growing out of it, the place I am sitting in. And now I built this structure to house my high energy dogs and turn them into loving family members.
I mean, people I've talked to are super interested in starting their own businesses, entrepreneurship, even just the basics of managing a business, whether that's, I think financial literacy is probably a big part of that, both for employment, but also just for, managing your own money once you get out and get a job. Some people are interested in learning for learning's sake. A lot of people say that they started their path to education in prison through the prison library. They picked up a book, it sparked their love of learning, and then when they had as soon as they had the opportunity, they enrolled in a formal degree program. I think self-discipline is a big thing in terms of the characteristics of people who, especially who do like correspondence courses. I think we all saw during the pandemic just how difficult even online learning could be for students who have all of the resources of the internet and, just on the outside. You think about just the prison environment and what it's like to study in there. It's noisy, the lights are on, you have a cellmate who is snoring. Like, it's not necessarily the most, conducive environment to be hitting the books. So I think that in and of itself kind of speaks to just the dedication, and especially for correspondence courses, like you have to maintain discipline. Like those courses are what you make of them. It's you send things in, but it's not like you have a lot of interaction and camaraderie from the classroom like you would in other contexts. So I think those same kind of characteristics probably translate when people get out. Just discipline, hard work, really like a love of learning. I think, those things probably might equate success in the labor market as well.
So that brings us to our conclusion. We really want to make sure that you know that the Career Center and our Justice Involved programs at Clark College are always going to be available to you, whether you're an enrolled student or not. We are completely open to the community, and we would love to help you in your journey.
We hope the stories of other people who have gone before and experienced these kinds of things has been useful for you, and that some of the practical resources will continue to be useful for you as you move forward.
We think that you're going to be the future success story, and we're excited to see what you do.